We all see the constant stream of sequels that release in theaters, but studios aren't just thoughtlessly churning them out.
What do you mean?
Studios do more than just constantly make new iterations of a movie. There's strategy involved. How soon after the original movie? How many big changes to make? And that strategy is crucial to its success.
I'm David Hermanovich, and this is the Aha Moment presented by Binghamton University. And when it comes to movies, it seems like they come faster than we can keep up with, especially these days when every single movie seems to be in a cinematic universe. And it feels like everything is a sequel, but what is the science behind movie studios working to keep interest in an ever-expanding movie library? And today, we're talking to Subimal Chatterjee about just that. He's a professor at the Binghamton University School of Management, and he's explored movie sequels extensively, how they perform, the timing of them, and how studios keep people buying tickets. So thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you very much, David. It's a pleasure.
Now, I'm really excited for this one in particular because it's a running joke between me and my wife at home where there's a lot of movie sequels that a lot of people dislike that I love. And she roasts me relentlessly for that. I'm a big fan of Shrek 2. I think it's better than the original. My hot take, Frosty the Snowman 2 is better than Frosty the Snowman the original. I know that's not a movie release. But so what I'm saying is I've brought you on to settle a dispute. And just tell me that I'm right. I'm kidding.
I never get into a dispute between a husband and a wife. You can never be right, I guess.
Yeah. So this research that we're going to be talking about today is quite interesting to me, and I'm sure a lot of people. It's something that we all think about movie sequels, as I mentioned. But I think the general conception is that studios just churn out as much as possible, as fast as possible. And that might not always be the case. So I'm really anxious to hear about your research. And I'm just curious what sparked it for you.
Yeah, that's a very good question. And, it takes me way back into my childhood and when I was growing up in India. And in India, when I was growing up, and this was in the early 70s and 80s, much before the era of the internet, there were superstars. There were superstars, and one in particular, Amitabh Bachchan. And I don't know why. I was such a fan of his. And in those days, the prize was the first day, first show ticket. And I would stand for hours in the line, in the heat, just to get that ticket. And mind you, the movies were not always good. They were regularly panned by the critic. But to me, it just didn't matter. And I just couldn't understand why. And so fast forward, I come to the United States, get my PhD, and then I join the State University of New York. Great system. And there I have to find an independent research stream. And what's the best research stream for me? I went back. Movies and sequels and star power. And what makes those people stand in those lines? I mean, figuratively speaking, nowadays no one stands in the lines. Anyway, no one even goes to movie theaters. Yeah, no one even goes to movie theaters these days. But it's something very, very close to my heart.
Mm-hmm. So what you did was, and this just broadly, you looked at a lot of movie titles and their sequels as well. And I know it's. With this research, you looked at when they were released in this window after the release, how they performed, the parent movie, also the sequel. And I know it might be easy to just kind of look at, okay, dollar total, which did better. But I know you're getting a lot of data in terms of this all this information coming in from box office numbers. How do you look at it in a way that lets you determine, okay, this is what the strategy is?
That's an extremely good question. And you mentioned there's lots and lots of data, correct? And so you have to understand my research is theory-driven. So I have an idea, I have a theory, and then I look at the data to see, if that data is consistent with my theory. So let's go back and talk about sequels that you mention a lot, okay? Sequels are, first of all, an innovation. It's like a new product, but it's very different from other innovations. It's a relative innovation because the parent comes first and the sequel comes second. So the sequel is always evaluated with respect to the parent. That makes it relative innovation. So R and I, that was the first two words of our theory. The second is, why do people go and watch sequels? Okay? And therein was the theory suggested two very, very different streams. One was comfort. That's the C in RIC. Comfort is, I saw something a few months ago or a year ago. I loved it, and I wanted the comfort of that experience again, relive that comfort. But then what happens? You get sequel 1, sequel 2, sequel 3, sequel 4, and what happens? You start getting, I hate to use this word, you start getting bored. So what do we need? We need stimulation. That's that last letter S, RICS. Relative innovation, comfort, and stimulation. The challenge to studio managers in those days when we did this research was to balance the last two, comfort versus stimulation. How long do you continue with the original? Change very little, if nothing at all. And then, when do you make that change? When do you anticipate people getting bored? So that, in a nutshell, is what my research is all about.
What you found was it pretty uniform that, okay, after a certain point, start making changes, or is it kind of on a spectrum depending on the movie franchise?
One funny thing about theoretical research, and then that's driven by data again, is our results never speak to an individual movie. They always speak to an average. So what we found, and to answer your question directly, is that around 3 and 4, boredom starts to kick in. And on the average, again, I stress this word on the average, studio managers start, or the good ones start to make the changes around those times. And that's where the stimulation part of our framework kicks in.
Interesting. And I'm just thinking back to longer running franchises rather. I don't know why my mind keeps on going back to Shrek. I guess that's the big sticking point for me personally between a lot of people. But Shrek 1, Shrek 2, pretty similar. Then that third one just kind of took it a completely different direction.
That's true.
And then if you think also, and I think this was in one of your papers, the Alien franchise.
True.
True. Aliens was very successful, although it did change some things. Partially, my opinion, due to the success of the first one, they decided to expand it. But then you go to Aliens 3, and it seems to just totally change. They threw away, seemingly threw away a lot of what happened in Aliens. It's interesting to see with this knowledge of going through your work, they decided to kind of pivot to a different direction.
That is absolutely true. Yeah. Again, as I told you before, it's the change and the point in time you make the change, and then again you see, and then it turns a whole cycle, and then maybe nostalgia creeps in. This is where I'm thinking loud. Maybe nostalgia creeps in, and maybe, the parents now, maybe they want to see Tom Cruise again in Top Gun. I don't know. so they bring him back as an instructor. So whenever I see those little things happening, it always interests me. I say, oh yes, there's a theory behind it. And so again, as you can guess, I just love studying these nuances. I love studying these changes. But at the back of my mind is always, okay, what's the theory that's driving these changes? It's not random. It's just not random. Let's see what sticks. But it's well thought out strategy.
So you're collecting all this data, analyzing all these movie franchises and sequels. What's something you found in your research that would kind of be an aha moment for the average person, going to the movie theaters or loading up their streaming service?
To me, an aha moment is about contradictions. And it would be found that sequels, in general, again, on the average, did better than their parent movies, but they were disliked by the critics. So that was the contradiction that we kind of thought very, very curious, and that led to another stream of research, actually. And we have some insights to it, I guess. But that was the aha moment, if you ask me.
And that's where I get a lot of flack from my wife. Is when you get the sequels that people don't like. But there are some sequels that tend to, I guess, if not in the box office, do anecdotally better. You think how popular Star Wars: A New Hope was, and then Empire Strikes Back comes out, and I don't know off the top of my head how that did in the box office, but in general, I think a lot of people that are fans of the franchise view that as the better movie than New Hope. Same thing with going back to the Alien franchise. Alien's super successful, but I know personally a lot of people who it is their opinion where they deeply respect the original,
right?
But Aliens they see as like the best movie in the franchise. So yeah, it's really interesting to see, especially when it is a movie that gets a poor review, but they tend to box office wise they tend to compete well.
That's true. So again, and what I was saying the last time is that the role of the critics, and the idea here is that do critics influence you? And you say no. Critics don't influence me. No. I loved it. I don't care what the critic says. All right? Or do the critics just predict what you might do? So that was another stream of research. I guess that's a conversation for another day.
So in terms of the implications for, I guess, for people watching movies, also studios, also, what's this type of research and these type of findings, what does it speak about the studios as they're putting together? Is this very much ingrained in their strategy?
I mean, look, if studios are data driven, then this leads. I would guess that this would be strategic in their mind, that this should be part of their strategy. But the other thing that you have to think about is consumer tastes. Right, there's a new generation of consumers, okay, and they're very, very different from those who maybe saw the parents or the first sequels. So their tastes are different. So maybe studios try to play a very fine balancing act between the two. Okay, how do you cater to new tastes at the same time not deviate too much from the original? But to directly address your question, is it sometimes necessary to divulge or deviate too much from the original? I guess so. But that's a decision for individual studio managers. Okay, we just talk about the average.
Mm-hmm. We just complain about it when it comes out. And especially nowadays because this research was done a little ways back, but nowadays I'd say it's more relevant than ever, just because it seems like everything that comes out, at least the major releases, I'm talking, the major releases that comes out, there's so many in cinematic universe. Marvel has their own thing that is just a behemoth. You have Star Wars, even though they've taken a little bit of a break, it seems like, at least on the cinematic end, you have this influx of shows on streaming and things like that. So I guess kind of where I want to go with it, and obviously this isn't anything that is based in the research that we're talking about, but using the findings from this, how do you see the current cinematic and streaming TV shows, cinematic universe intertwinement this research relating to that, because not only do you have releases coming out in theaters, you have TV shows that are in conjunction with the releases that are coming out into theaters. It just seems like it's just getting all very complicated.
The research, look, one of the implications for that research is that one size doesn't fit all. Okay. And therefore, maybe studio managers, when they're trying to balance the so-called multi-channel problem, okay, you're getting releases in different channels and maybe to different audiences. Perhaps one of the things that they might do is to look at those audiences carefully first, okay? And maybe those two audiences are not the same, what I'm saying. All right, so people that go to the movies versus people, who watch it on streaming, I don't know. Maybe they're different people, and maybe their tastes are different. So, as the advice we always give to managers is that study your audience first, and then decide on your product. That was true 50 years ago. It's true now, and it will be true 50 years from now. So study your audience.
So if there's one thing to take away from this research, on my end at least, it's that studios need to know their consumer, but also there's very clear strategy that have been proven to work in terms of optimizing sequels. Subimal, what would you like people to take away from this research?
So I couldn't agree more with you, David. Studios need to know their consumers, but they need to know something else also, that no two consumers are the same. So there's a considerable heterogeneity in tastes. That's what they need to know. Do those tastes translate into different channels? Do moviegoers who wish to see the movie in theaters behave in one way versus those who streaming movies from the comforts of their home? Do they behave in a separate way? So once studio managers understand the similarities and differences between the two, then perhaps they can play their balancing act a little bit better.
Well, thank you. And that was Subimal Chatterjee, professor at the Binghamton University School of Management. I'm David Hermanovich, and this has been the Aha Moment podcast presented by Binghamton University. Thank you for listening. We'll be back next month. The Aha Moment is a Binghamton University podcast. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen.